Hello and welcome. You're watching The Mint. I'm Andy Hodges and this is ZTN Prime, broadcasting to you from our studios in Harare, Zimbabwe. Ahead on The Mint. Public sector accounts departments and civil society organizations, or CSOs, must embrace international accounting standards to foster accountability, transparency, and investor confidence. International Financial Reporting Standards, or IFRS, are not just a set of accounting principles, they are the bedrock of transparent financial reporting. They provide a common language of business that ensures consistency and comparability in financial statements. Business entities should be drivers of economic growth through professional accountants who should work towards accountability, transparency, and the maintenance of good governance. Today on The Mint, I will unpack all things accounting in Zimbabwe, focusing on its impact on Zimbabwe's economy. I speak to the CEO of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Zimbabwe, William Mandisodza. Don't go away, The Mint. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching The Mint, and this is ZTN Prime. Now, as I said in my opening, today we're going to talk about accounting, or the accounting profession in Zimbabwe, and its importance to the economy and also to business and the private sector. We're also going to look at how accounting principles and how international accounting standards should become standardized in civic society organizations. And with me to discuss all things accounting, I'm joined by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Zimbabwe Chief Executive Officer William Mandisodza to unpack this all. William, welcome.
Thank you, Andy.
Now, they always say accountants are supposed to be boring. You're not boring, so that's okay. So that's a misnomer.
That's refreshing. That's refreshing.
Now, William, in the first segment, I want to look at civil society organizations. Now, our research shows that in civil society, different organizations use different accounting standards and reporting. So maybe comment on that and also tell us what is the progress? What are you doing about this?
Thank you, Andy. As you have rightly said in your opening remarks, it's all about developing public confidence, and the NPO sector is there to provide public support to governments and the society. The space we are operating in at the moment is driven in terms of financial reporting by demands of donors. So donors are prescribing how most of our NPOs are reporting their financials. But there comes a problem. We've got CSOs which have multiple donors. You are receiving money from USAID, from CARE, from all those entities. And you need to provide financial statements to the donors. And each donor is coming up with a different reporting framework. That is a challenge. It means the CSOs have to produce 3 sets of financial reports to satisfy different donors. So what is happening in the profession is we're looking for a way to harmonize reporting in non-profit making organization. The International Accounting Standards Board has agreed to allow the sector to start discussion on how those standards can be developed. So we now have what we call a project, International Financial Reporting for NPOs, which has been started. It is being run by an organization, Momentum, which is based in the UK. And the anchor professional body which is supporting Momentum is CIPFA. CIPFA has always been traditionally focusing on public sector reporting, and they want to try and bring those principles into the NPO market. So, Andy, we are actually looking at harmonizing financial reporting.
Because it's important, because you need to compare like with like. So you have CSOs in the same area, let it be, say, food distribution. One reports differently, the other one reports differently, and you don't really know whether which is which. Now, one of the issues, of course, that matters, you mentioned there a CSO that has 3 different donors from 3 different countries, and each of them have their own standards they need to follow based on where their home bases are.
Yeah.
What kind of buy-in? Because you need buy-in from these sort of organizations like USAID, CARE, World Vision. There needs to be buy-in from some of the large donors, even United Nations, for example. Is that there? Is it forthcoming? Otherwise, you may be knocking your head against the wall.
Yeah, fortunately, Andy, the buy-in is coming. There was a study which was done across 179 countries in terms of this very question, do we need to harmonize financial reporting? And 72% actually said yes. And I am glad to actually say Humantum is also funded by some of those big NPOs. So who are looking at the need seriously, and they've actually seen the benefits of harmonization. So there is a lot of buy-in from the big international donors in terms of this project.
Now, you did recently hold a conference or seminar in Troutbeck where you did discuss this issue with NGOs. What would you say the feedback was from the audience? Are they for or against it? Because, you know, they always say resistance to change is always there. But was there any?
Interestingly, Andy, a majority of our participants were preparers. So they were the ones who were suffering from multiple reporting. So there was pretty much 100% buy-in into this project. And as Zimbabwe, the Institute of Chartered Accountants, we have been appointed as a country champion for that project, and we'll be rolling out consultations through similar conferences and engaging members who are practicing.
You've also set up a committee, if I'm not mistaken.
We have in the institute, we now have a committee which looks at reporting in the NPO sector. So now, we are beefing up our resources in that direction.
As it's a global initiative, there are benchmarks to meet in terms of feedback from various countries, organizations. Do you know when those are? I know, if I'm not mistaken, one's in March, if I'm not mistaken, the second phase. Maybe talk us quickly.
So standard setting process has got a number of activities which happen, which start from consultations and then drafting of an exposure draft, which is just a draft of what they've actually picked up from the consultation. Then we debate it, and then a standard then can be set. So we are still in the consultation stage, which I think closes in March. And then thereafter, the technical drafters will then bring in what we have actually put as input to come up with a draft. But normally, a project like this will take 2-3 or so years, and maybe effective date will be 2025. Going onwards, but the process has started.
Now, before I move to the public sector and some of ICAZ's initiatives there, one of the issues, of course, the NGOs is capacity, because a lot of them don't have trained auditors sitting in their roles in their organizations. Maybe they're just finance managers or someone good with numbers. That's an issue, is it not? Or what can be done? And also, of course, auditing. That was another issue, because each of them needs to be audited as per the law. But of course, they may be too small or can't afford it.
Very true. It's one of those things which came out when we were having our conference, where people were saying we're too small to actually have a full audit and so forth. We took up some of the feedback, and also what we have also done is to try and create a platform within ICAZ, because we tend to have close to 90% of the audit market, so that we can assist our members in delivering effective audits in a manageable in terms of budget. In addition to that, Andy, we are consciously developing courses and material for practitioners in the sector, so that it helps with the audit. When an auditor comes into an entity which has got good controls and financial practices, the audit becomes cheaper. So we are also looking at supporting the preparers and also the auditors.
Well, let's look at the public sector, because this is huge. Of course, here we're talking government, state-owned enterprises, local authorities. I mean, I could go on. It's a huge sector. I understand ICAZ is also running an initiative to capacitate and train financial personnel within public sector organizations. Can you expand on what you're doing?
Thanks, Andy. If you look at our history, which we celebrated 106 years last week,
only I wish I could get that old. Yeah.
So we have been focusing on the private sector, something which we have done very well. Our brand is now an international brand in that space, and we've developed collateral to actually develop financial experts in accountants. But we sat back and said government contributes close to 56% of economic activity in the country through its expenditure, but we are not doing much in that space in terms of upskilling and also professionalizing some of the finance personnel in the government. So a decision was made to actually come up with a qualification which is designed to cater for practitioners in the public sector. We want to bring the benefits which we have of being an ICAZ member, which is our training and our academic qualification and continuous monitoring of ethical behavior. And we are getting very good traction from the government. Currently, we've got 28 members who have qualified in the past 2 years. And we've got a class of about 130 who have just written their exams in December. Hopefully, we'll get a number coming through. In addition, we now have 4- and 3-year programs where people who are coming from university can start the program, complete it in 3 to 5 years. So that is now running.
I mean, this speaks to issues such as the Auditor General's report, where it has such adverse findings as audit is not being adhered to, or they're not qualifying all the issues raised. Also talks about assets. I want to talk about this asset issue, because one of the things the Minister of Finance is very keen on is for the government to start producing a balance sheet that shows both liabilities and assets. And of course, it's very clear that government doesn't seem to know where all their assets are. So it's a huge problem, this. But I mean, talk to me about that, because obviously, as I said, it feeds into the Auditor General's report. It also feeds into making Zimbabwe's balance sheet look attractive rather than just owing everybody. We actually do have assets on the other side.
Thanks, Andy. For the benefit of the viewers, I think I want to start by contrasting the current accounting methods the government using with what is going to happen after we've introduced the International Public Finance Reporting Standards, IPSAS. Currently, we are accounting for transaction on a cash basis and for assets on an expenditure basis. So what it means is a road between here and Mtare only appears in the government financial statements in the years it is built. Thereafter, we don't know whether that road exists or not, because we would have expensed everything to do with that road.
So it's no longer an asset.
It's no longer an asset, it's expenditure. But what we're going towards is that the government should actually capitalize or make some of the expenditure as capital assets. You've got an investment banking background. It is important to have a balance sheet because you can raise funds with a balance sheet. But currently, the government just expenses assets. In addition to just having a balance sheet, the moment you capitalize, you need to track the asset. It becomes easier for you to have an asset number. When the auditors come, you can actually point to the asset. But if it was expensed 2-3 years ago, it has disappeared. So it is a very good initiative which the government has embarked on. And I think we are going to have the standards implemented from 2025, if I'm not mistaken, and every institution of government will be applying IPSAS. So comparability of government information and private sector information becomes very possible. You can have a balance sheet of Harare City Council, compare it with Delta, you can still see the same lines, and you can actually measure the wealth Harare has because you would have a balance sheet.
Now, of course, the question would be, people sitting out there will say, well, how does it affect us? How does it affect me, a Zimbabwean citizen sitting in Mzwabani or Gokwe? Economically, what is this public sector getting their books together, getting their accounting standards all the same? Why me? What does it do for me?
I liked when you talked about public interest, which is the purpose of accounting, right? Especially for the public institutions. People would want to know that the funds which were allocated for a project have been used appropriately. And that can come from correct accounting and being done by people who have got certain ethics. I'm highlighting the issue of ethics because it's topical in our environment. We talk about corruption and etc. By professionalizing accountants in the government, we are not leaving the responsibility to government to monitor ethical behaviors of practitioners. We are saying, professional organizations, your member has committed XYZ crime, can you deal with that member? And then it then has about 2 tiers of reprimand or discipline. Accountant professionals will discipline their member, and the government may also discipline. But therefore, it deters members from malpractice.
And that's great about fighting corruption.
It is important.
Now, just quickly before I take a breather, just really briefly, ICAZ, of course, as you said, your qualification is world-renowned. In fact, I would think that if you have your top qualification at ICAZ, you can pretty much walk into any accounting job in the world, and they have done, Zimbabweans. But you've realized that with the NGO sector, CSOs, and also with public sector, everybody cannot go for the Rolls Royce. They sometimes need to drive a Sunny. So what have you done in terms of trying to sort of make the courses more affordable, more approachable, more standard, or lower standard, not lower standard, apologies, but enough for people to actually access?
Thanks, Andy. We realize that obviously we can't resource the government with professional accountants alone. There are a number of professionals who be at different stages of their career, right? You might have someone who is walking in and they're just from school. We've got a technician qualification, which they can attain after 1 year of experience. And then we've got an associate accountant, which is in the middle. They have worked for 2-3 years, they do our exams, and they can attain an associate qualification. Then, having attained the associate qualification, if one feels they want to go for the top prize, then they will continue with their progression. In addition, there could be a practitioner who is 55 years old, and they're looking at retirement in the next 2-3 years. They need to upskill. We have now created short courses on IPSAS and public finance and other variety of topics so that they can upskill and just get a certificate and improve their performance. Therefore, we've catered for almost all the layers in terms of career progression.
Which is critical, because we need skills from the junior all the way to the senior, and skills that we can monitor and obviously adapt as things change. Now it's time for us to take a breather. After the break, I'll continue this conversation about accountants and accounting. Told you it wasn't going to be boring, didn't I? Don't go away, The Mint. We'll be right back.
We are a special day today here in Harare. It's the inaugural show of the Phoenix podcast.
The story of Africa is really a story about rising from the ashes.
I'm privileged to be sitting in Dubai, and I'm here today in this city of Hoi An in Vietnam. And he's the Amazon #1 seller of a new book called Take Charge. She's one of the most famous celebrity chefs in Vietnam.
You just have to speak it into the universe. When you say something, the universe listens. God listens.
But more importantly, we're talking about having the ability to believe in yourself. is if we want to make our children, it's not what we do for them that will make them, but it's what we don't do for them that makes them. If you want to be a global player, listen to the future. You can't become the pill without the irritation.
You have to go through that pressure. It's what's going to make you shine.
Those things that I fell down actually helped me appreciate how to get up again. And every time I got up, I was stronger. Because there's nothing as powerful as an idea whose time has come.
Welcome back. You're watching The Mint, and this is ZTN Prime. I'm Andy Hodges. The Institute of Chartered Accountants of Zimbabwe, or ICAZ as you all know it, has moved to adopt emerging technologies to help improve service delivery and contribute to the country's economic development. In an era where the exchange rate is constantly changing, commodity prices softening, we've got El Nino and, of course, inflation, accountants need to find ways to adapt in their profession. I'm still with ICAZ Chief Executive Officer William Mandisodza to discuss if Zimbabwe's unstable currency and other issues about the economy in Zimbabwe is affecting accounting systems. William, let's start from the top. An overview of the current state of the accountancy profession in Zimbabwe, especially in light of what I can call economic challenges, regulatory changes, policy shifts. I mean, it's quite complicated out there for an accountant, isn't it?
Indeed, Andy, the environment is tough just for every professional. In accounting, it becomes tougher because we tend to report on financials, which are affected by the trends in the currency particularly. Indeed, the largest challenge we have currently is obviously hyperinflation of the Zimbabwe dollar. And we do have a number of players who are predominantly Zimbabwean dollar. And as an institution, definitely we've got standards, accounting standards, which help us to try and make sense of financial information under hyperinflation. The PA board, which is our regulator, then adopted the standard which is on hyperinflation, which is IS 29. This is a standard which tries to measure financial reports on a current basis to allow comparability between years. You would understand that if I say last year I made $1 million and I say I also made $1 million this year, they mean different things. Because I could buy maybe a Honda Fit last year with $1 million, but now I can hardly buy anything. So yeah. So but what that standard does is it looks at what did this money buy last year and how does it buy this year, and it allows comparability. It's a complex standard because it's got a number of inputs, including the rate of inflation and a number of other techniques.
I suppose this takes me to the currency issue because there's two questions here. Of course, first of all, I sit on this show daily and I talk about a company making 700 billion or 1.5 trillion. And I kind of think, guys, these numbers are just ridiculous because you can't imagine what they are. So I suppose the question is, what about US dollars, the impact of them reporting in US dollars, which I think ZAC is trying to instigate this year, and also, of course, strategies for businesses to manage this currency fluctuation, which leads to huge exchange losses in some companies. I looked at Econet the other day, exchange losses, Meikles, the same thing. Well, what is your advice to business out there?
Andy, indeed, we are getting into a situation where sometimes even the name of the amount changes annually, trillions from billions and etc. So interpretation becomes difficult. In my view, it is advisable to report in a stable currency. Say you have done your Zimbabwean dollars and then when you present your financial statements, you present them in US dollars.
Because they always say inflation adjusted, and then, I mean...
It becomes difficult, even if they're inflation adjusted. Even the zeros themselves, I think they actually confuse most readers. So the move by the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange to allow preparers to present their financial statements in US dollars, I think is a noble idea. It makes it easier to compare companies, whether your functional currency is in US dollars or in ZWL. If you present everything in Zimbabwean dollars, in US dollars, it allows easy comparison of financial information.
Now, obviously, as I talked in the introduction there about new technologies, different ways of doing things, innovations, keeping up with the trend, so to speak. Your vision as ICAZ, as the CEO, where do you want to see your profession, the accountancy profession in Zimbabwe, in the next 5 years? Do you see things changing, or what are you seeing going on?
Okay, I think let me speak for the profession, not just for ICAZ. What we want to see is a profession which is well regulated. We are losing credibility because everyone is calling themselves an accountant after finishing their diploma or their university degree. I want the viewers to understand that an accountant or a professional accountant is one who is a member of a professional accountants body, having satisfied membership requirements of examinations and training. So what I think should happen from a regulatory perspective is definitely to try and regulate the sector, to say everyone who calls themselves an accountant should be a member of a professional accountants organization and a member of the Public Accountants and Auditors Board in Zimbabwe. Why do we need that? Apart from just membership, Andy, our members get continuous professional development. Someone who has done an accounting degree in 1981 is not keeping pace with changes, but our member keeps in pace,
upgrading,
with because we provide that service. Okay. And if we have our accountants all up to date, the product which then comes out from the accountants becomes better. So my vision is having a very inclusive profession which is tightly regulated. But
my final question, we've only got a few minutes here. Look, there's fingers being pointed at your members because most of your members, or some of them, are holding senior manager positions. In fact, I don't think you can find a company that isn't run by a chartered accountant. And the position is that it is you chartered accountants that are finding ways to circumvent the law, whether it be tax laws or whatever laws. It's you guys with the brains, the chartered accountants, that are doing that. What would you say to that very briefly?
Interesting, Andy. A very interesting question. And probably a very important observation, because most of our members are the leaders of the large corporates. But I believe we need to differentiate tax avoidance from tax evasion. What we train our members to do is to avoid tax in the legal framework. So if you've got a way of reducing the tax liability of your employer or your client in the confines of the law, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. But if our members are evading taxes, we are there to discipline them.
And they will probably go to jail.
Yes.
Right, and on that note, ICAZ Chief Executive Officer William Mandisodza, thank you so much for coming to the show. We've got a lot more to talk about, but I'm sure we'll see you over the course of the year on The Mint. Of course, The Mint, join us every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday, 2 p.m. Central African time. And of course, Wednesdays beat the market. I will see you tomorrow morning. You know what time, 6 a.m. for the only show that you should wake up for. And that is Morning Rush. I'm Andy Hodges. Goodbye. And please, you all be safe.
The son, third born. One of my favorite sons. I have a lot of sons, by the way. Plus, I realized with a lot of artists, vakaona pa-airport kuti 10 tikasatotaura naye panapa, we don't spend time with him, abatike muZimbabwe. Tekala talks a lot. He's always talking. He does not keep quiet. But because he's the king of hip hop, I need to oversee trading.